Imagine using cutting-edge technology to track disappearing wetlands, crafting interactive story maps to educate the public, and designing eye-catching digital campaigns, all before finishing high school. That's exactly what Ontario Nature's Youth Council has been up to, and today we're pulling back the curtain on their journey. How can GIS and digital tools turn young advocates into conservation leaders? And what does it take to make people care about wetlands? Let's find out. Welcome back to Geographical Thinking. I'm Michelle Brake, and I'll be your guide as we explore ideas, stories, and conversations through the lens of geography. Joining me today are Emily, Graham, Nova, and Yiming. Welcome, everyone, to Geographical Thinking. Emily, let's get started with you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what's your role in everything we're talking about today?
Great. Yeah, thanks for having us, Michelle. My name is Emily. I'm the education coordinator here at Ontario Nature. And in my role, I primarily work with the Nature Guardians Youth Program and the Youth Council. So basically, what that looks like is running youth programming and connecting with youth council members to run environmental focused programming.
Awesome. And Graham, how have you gotten to where you are today within the group?
I started at Ontario Nature about 3.5 years ago, and I've been in different roles throughout my time. But I'm currently the GIS coordinator, so I support all of our GIS users, and I'm involved in various projects that we have going on that use GIS.
Awesome. Nova, you're up next. How did you get involved with the Youth Council?
Hi everyone, my name is Nova. I got involved with the Youth Council when I attended the summit in grade 10, and I have not looked back since. I'm just a grade 12 graduating this year. Super excited to be here. Thanks for everyone for being here today.
Yeah, awesome. And Yiming, how have you been? How are things within the Youth Council? How did you come to find it?
I think I started at Youth Council when there's an outreach table at our school, and that's how I signed up the sheet. And so far, I've been like volunteering and doing outreach, spreading awareness about conservation so far, and it's been a great experience.
Awesome. It's great to hear that there's a wide range of experience with the program and where we're at. But to get us started, can you all tell me a little bit more about the Ontario Nature Youth Council and its role in conservation efforts? Emily, knowing your role, maybe let's start with you to kick it off.
Yeah, so the Ontario Nature Youth Council is a diverse provincial network of passionate youth from all across the province of Ontario who are dedicated to inspiring, connecting, and raising environmental awareness. And essentially, the goal of the Youth Council is to raise environmental awareness while building meaningful connections and inspiring positive change to support our natural environment. It all started in 2010 after our very first youth summit for biodiversity, which is what it was called at the time, and it has grown a ton since then. This year, we have 96 members on our Youth Council, and members of the Youth Council take action on important conservation issues like wetland protection, pollinator awareness, habitat restoration, biodiversity, and all of that great stuff. With the support of Ontario Nature staff, Youth Council members support conservation efforts and education through planning and hosting community conservation volunteering events, our annual Youth Summit for Mother Earth, presentations, and outreach tables, and all of those great things.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of things packed into one program. I'm amazed, and I know I've had a chance to review some of what you guys have going on, and I know that's included some GIS, which is where Graham comes into the equation. Graham, what's your role been, and how has the Youth Council and conservation been part of your life?
Yeah, so Ontario Nature has used and we continue to use GIS in a lot of different ways to advance conservation. We've used it to visualize candidate areas for permanent protection, including old growth forests, provincially significant wetlands, and Indigenous protected and conserved areas. We published the latest version of the Ontario Reptile and Amphibian Atlas with lots of updated species range maps, maps for every single species listed in there. We have created conservation plans in priority areas across Ontario, identifying priority properties for habitat restoration and stewardship. And we use maps to visualize species, threats like invasive species, and restoration efforts across all of our nature reserves.
Awesome. Glad to see that we're getting to the heart of conservation and finding some ways to throw GIS in there to make the message stick. Yiming, coming over to you next. How has the experience been with the Youth Council and the role of conservation within those efforts?
Personally, for me, the youth council have been such an eye-opening experience. I've seen so many new animals and plants that I would never have imagined seeing in high school, and I met indigenous elder, professor, and scientists who work in this field. I practiced and learned so many new skills such as like IDing wildlife, communication, and planning logistic. But so far, my contribution have just been mainly volunteering, learning, and growing as much as possible.
Amazing. It sounds like from what you've been experiencing with those IDing animals and plants that maybe you're the best person to have on a hike in the future. We can really have some fun finding what's out there in nature. Okay, rounding us out, Nova, how has your experience been with the council and the intersections with conservation?
Yes. So, in the little over the 2 years of my time on the youth council, I've been able to connect with so many brilliant youth, knowledgeable elders, and amazing Ontario Nature staff. And being able to just work with others in support of our wetlands campaign has really been the highlight of my time. Like I've done a little bit of this, a little bit of that, like everything really. And I've learned just so much about endangered species in Ontario and all the various habitats that Ontarian species call home.
Fantastic. Sounds like we're rounding out who could join us in this hiking group. Okay, we got Graham making maps. We have Emily helping us steer the way. Nova Yemming, you guys know everything about what's happening outside in nature. I am wondering though, how did GIS and other digital tools come to be part of the Youth Council and start to shape those interactions and inspire it?
So many of our youth council alumni go into post-secondary programs that are centered around conservation or the environment, and then later pursue careers in the same areas. So knowing this and from the experiences of Ontario Nature staff, we wanted to be able to introduce and equip current youth council members with digital skills to support their growth and develop their interests in conservation while using GIS technology.
Awesome. And Graham, how have you seen your support from your side?
Yeah, over the past 4 or 5 years, I'd say we've really only been increasing our GIS capacity across all of our programs, whether it's publishing interactive story maps, highlighting those potential protected areas that I mentioned, identifying ecological corridors in collaboration with Indigenous communities and regional partners, or modeling habitat suitability to identify possible locations to find previously unknown populations of a species. So we've used GIS in all of these different programs, but the Youth Council was one aspect of Ontario Nature where we hadn't really incorporated much GIS, and we were looking for opportunities to introduce youth to this really important tool that is only rising in usage in the conservation field. So this workshop that we hosted with the Youth Council was really a perfect opportunity to collaborate with the Youth Council using GIS.
Fantastic. And I know I came across a posting on Instagram about the Youth Council and their workshops surrounding GIS and story maps in particular. And I think that's exciting to see and great that you're featuring it in places where other people can see it as well, knowing that story maps are such an easy tool to use for communicating tough subjects like conservation. I'm excited to see more of where that's going to go in the future, but I'm wondering what were some key takeaways for youth council members from the GIS and story maps workshop? Graham, anything that you noticed?
For me, working with the Youth Council has really helped us to ensure that our maps and GIS projects are really easily understood and accessible to youth. Sometimes maps can look sometimes maps can look really complicated or include lots of jargon that doesn't really mean anything to the average person seeing it. So this workshop really supported us in our efforts to create maps that are well designed, making sure that they're clear and visually appealing, and where possible interactive. Being able to interact with a map and move around can really help people to feel more connected to what they're seeing.
Awesome. And Nova, how have you found working with story maps and GIS? Any key takeaways?
being able to see data in pictures and visuals definitely gives me a deeper understanding of what the data really means. So for me, GIS really connects the two, data and visuals. My key takeaways from the GIS and Story Maps workshop is that it's important to find a balance between presenting information in graphics or images, especially for something like story maps, which the team over at Ontario Nature made a wonderful example of in the beginning of this year on wetlands, by the way. Working together with Graham and the Ontario Nature team on the story maps has encouraged me to always try and present information in a way that's easily understandable and accessible for everyone.
And Yiming, what about you? How have your experiences been, or any key takeaways that you found from that GIS workshop?
I think my main takeaway from the workshop is learning the wide range of GIS application in conservation. As someone who want to go into conservation field, I think it's really beneficial for me to be familiarized with all the tools that I will be using in my future.
Amazing. Glad to hear that there's a path forward as well in the different skills that you may want to apply in the future. Now, I'm wondering, Nova and Yiming, can you share examples of content or campaigns that youth council members have worked on using these new skills that you've learned?
Yeah, so being able to present information effectively and engagingly is definitely a valuable and transferable skill. For example, just this March, youth council members presented a seed starting and micro gardening workshop during our monthly meeting. Well, although I wasn't able to make it to the meeting, I did watch back the recording and figure out why everything I plant always seemed to die. It's because I leave my plants outside for way too long. But anyways, we also have an iNaturalist project where youth council members identify and upload pictures of species that we spotted in our communities. So the platform itself does use GIS technology, I think. And so we can also like tag locations and view what others have found on a map. We're basically making like a super simplified version of the maps that GIS software creates, and it's only one layer. But it's still very interesting to see the distribution of species as well as species that are uncommon or can't be found in my own community.
Yeah, and great call out for the iNaturalist project. I know I'm a contributor to it here in my community, and I love seeing what other people have found. Something that you may not know and may want to check out is on our Living Atlas of the World. We actually have a layer that has all the iNaturalist observations around the world that you can take a look at and peek in to see, hey, what else are people finding? What else are people seeing near me? So maybe something you want to check out for a future project. Now, Yiming, I know GIS is a big part of these campaigns, but have there been other digital skills that you've had a chance to apply? Anything that we should be taking and working into our tool belt?
I was able to use a digital media skill recently in spreading awareness about wetland loss in Ontario and how clean energy is actually affordable by making posters and posting them around my school and in an elementary school recently when I went there for an environmental outreach. And now you mentioned iNaturalist. I'm also a big fan of iNaturalist, and that actually remind me of how I did make a story map for one of my co-op. So that's a high school co-op. So I actually made a story map with GIS, and I also used the data from iNaturalist to building all my story maps. So I'm really a fan of
Amazing.
iNaturalist.
Yeah, glad to hear that we're all fans of it here together. Now, I know back in February, the Youth Council had a chance to learn about digital engagement and using Canva for content creation. I'm wondering if you have some insights amongst you about why is strong digital communication important for conservation efforts. Emily, let's toss this one over to you.
Yeah, so for the work that we do with the Youth Council, strong digital communication is so important because it helps us to connect with people from diverse regions more so than we could do in person. So, creating and sharing content made on Canva, for example, helps us to tell stories, raise environmental awareness, and inspire action in really creative ways while also making the information accessible and relatable. And by developing digital communication skills, youth council members can spread the message of our work further and connect with youth from diverse communities across the province.
Fantastic. Yiming, I know we just touched on how some different posters and things were part of your work. How did the Canva workshop and content creation play a part in maybe any of this, and why have you found that digital conservation is important in this area?
Yeah, I think as I am aware of, our generation uses social media a lot to get informed. We really rarely read the news, despite how like disturbing it is for so many people not using the news to actually get informed politically. I think it's more of becoming a reality that we live in. I have to confess, a lot of my information come from social media too. So if we don't use those media, we're never gonna reach those audience, which is a massive population. And I don't think this phenomenon can be changed so easily. So I think we have to work with the situation. That's why I think digital engagement is quite essential for conservation.
Fantastic. And Nova, anything you want to throw in? Has Canva or other digital communication tools been a part in your work?
Yeah, I think Canva is such a useful tool to create powerful and compelling visuals for social media, which can really capture the intention of the public, especially younger audiences. And because most people are visual learners, visuals are definitely incredibly efficient when we're trying to convey messages to the broader audience. So, for example, in the beginning of this year, I helped caption a beaver appreciation post that was made by another youth council member for Ontario Nature's Instagram. And because of the visuals, I was able to digest the content a lot easier and resonate deeper with the message that the post was conveying. And like Yiming and Emily mentioned, we're definitely able to reach a lot more people through social media to aid our conservation efforts.
Awesome. Well, hopefully our podcast today will just add into the large content library that you're already generating. Now, I'm wondering, how do you see them helping you in your future work? And what has been the most valuable thing that you've learned so far that you think others should know about? Yiming, any key things that we should keep in mind to put in our tool belts in the future?
So I think as I'm aware of, again, there are lots of nonprofits in conservation that are educational focused. So, for example, Ontario Nature, and I could absolutely see the skill I obtained through the Youth Council benefiting me in my future work. And something I want other youth to know is that you don't really have to have all the official trainings and education to contribute in conservation. I have a lot of unnecessary self doubt when I started it. So I want other youth to know that you don't need to think about it that way. And by simply being at the outreach table, you're gonna bring a new dynamic to the presentation. By learning about conservation, you can educate and have influence on the people around you. And you will grow and develop the skill that you want before you even notice it. You'll have a bigger impact. And not just to conservation, but also to other areas as well. Yeah, I think a lot of um, environment educator have touched on this, but I think it's a really important message that I really want other people to know about.
Agreed. I think conservation is one of those areas that it's all around us. We interact with nature daily. Why not play a role in ensuring that it's there tomorrow? Now, Nova, where have you fallen in this? Are there skills that you see going into your future? Are there things that other people should know about?
Yes, I absolutely agree with you, Ming. For me, the most important thing I've learned is taking that first step. It may seem scary, but it is crucial. For example, although I'm not an expert birder or an expert in any particular field really, I'm positive that I know a lot more compared to when I first joined the youth council. And I can definitely see myself applying the skills I've learned, such as campaigning, digital engagement, connecting with people, and presenting in my future work, because these are skills that are truly applicable in a variety of fields.
Fantastic. Glad to hear that there are ways that we see these coming into our future work. And I agree that taking that first step really is the barrier to moving forward. Once you're there, you're getting that connection. It's a lot easier because you're amongst friends. Now I'm wondering what's up next for Ontario Nature's Youth Council. Are there any upcoming initiatives or projects? Emily, what's in the pipeline?
So there is a lot coming up for the Youth Council this year. We're excited to continue our work on the wetlands campaign. And coming up this spring, a handful of our Youth Council members will be attending the annual wetland field trip, where they'll have the opportunity to learn about wetlands in a hands-on way, including through workshops and pond studies. And over the summer, we have a number of conservation volunteering events coming up called Our Special Spaces, which includes events such as litter cleanups, habitat restoration, pollinator garden planting, and more. Our Youth Council members are also leading wetlands-focused workshops, including an event led by Yiming at the Don Valley Brickworks focused on birding and benthic invertebrates. So there's a variety of events coming up for youth and community members to become involved with. And finally, coming up in September is the annual Youth Summit for Mother Earth, which is a weekend-long cross-cultural event where youth from across the province come together for a weekend of workshops, outdoor learning activities, and opportunities to connect with other youth from across Ontario.
Fantastic. I can't wait to see where all this plays out in the next few months. But for those people that are wondering, our listeners might be interested in seeing, where can they get more information about Ontario Nature's work and support these initiatives? Emily, take us home here with our answer.
Yeah, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and X at Ontario Nature. You can also keep tabs on the Youth Council by following us on Instagram at @ON_Youth Council. And you can also check out our website at ontarionature.org for resources, blogs, and the ON Nature magazine as well.
Fantastic. We'll make sure to include all of those links and various resources that we've talked about today in our show notes so everyone can get the scoop on what's happening next. I want to say thank you so much, everyone, for joining me today. Emily, Graham, Nova, Yiming. It's been so fantastic hearing about the work that you're doing with the Youth Council, how it's going to shape conservation for the years to come. I know I'm excited. Did everyone have a good time today?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Great to hear. Now, this takes us to our ending for today. Again, a big thank you to our guests, but from mapping wetlands to crafting digital campaigns, Ontario Nature's Youth Council is proving that technology and conservation go hand in hand. Who knew that a mix of GIS, story maps, and a little Canva magic could help protect Ontario's wetlands? A huge shout out again to our guests for sharing their experiences, and to all the young advocates out there. Keep using your voices, your maps, and your creativity to make a difference. Want to learn more or get involved? Check out Ontario Nature's work and start mapping your own path to conservation. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep thinking geographically.